Hey everybody, hope you're having a great start to the week. Welcome to the week opening edition of Notre Dame Daily, brought to you by Fan Arch. I'm Pete Mulroy, and on Saturday, the Irish extended their win streak to 6 games, albeit in a lackluster performance that left a lot to be desired, and we could be, blunt about that. And while the threat of losing the game to an extent was never really present, ND was undeniably not at its best. From a fumble by Jadarian Price early in the game inside the 10-yard line that would have increased the score, inconsistent play up front by the offensive line, and 3 missed kicks. More on that in a minute. Miscues could have absolutely devastated a Notre Dame team that has no room for error from a win-loss perspective. It was, by every meaning of the phrase, an ugly win. There were, however, a good number of positives, with the biggest obviously being that the Irish won the football game. The win was also enough to push the Irish back into the top 10 in the latest AP poll, which came out Sunday afternoon. The 6-2 Golden Domers now ranked 10th. Individually, CJ Carr turned in a nice bounce-back performance after struggling in the win over USC 2 weeks ago. 18 of 25 completed passes for 299 and 2 scores. Jeremiah Love went for well over 100 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns of his own, which was huge considering Price ran the ball just 9 times for a total of 12 yards. On the outside, Jordan Faison, 4 catches, 82 yards. Will Pauling, 4 for 73 and a score. Eli Raridan, 3 grabs of his own for 60 yards. And Malachi Fields, 2 for 52 and a touchdown. Turned in consistent performances on a day where the Irish, quite simply, looked flat. On the defensive side of the ball, you want more positives. Drake Bowen and KVA were nothing short of spectacular. They combined for 23 tackles, 14 of which came from Bowen. 2.5 sacks combined and 4.5 tackles for loss combined. Tay Johnson also continues to play great football on the back end there with Don Schuler. That pairing has certainly been fun to watch. Schuler, one of Notre Dame's captains. The negatives, however, were glaring and they were frustrating. The offensive line, again, was inconsistent throughout the game. And while it's fair to note and not forget that they're still gelling off the injuries to Billy Schrouth and Ashton Craig, this is a unit that's going to need to become more consistent and more coherent quickly. You look at what Notre Dame has down the stretch, the four games coming up, specifically a Pitt team in 2 weeks that plays physical defense and is hot. You've got to get that right and do it quickly. From a coaching perspective, look, I couldn't understand why on multiple occasions Boubacar Traore, a premier pass rusher, is coming off the field on certain third downs. Those are situations where you want your best rushers, Traore, KVA, Jaden Osbury, Sneed, on the field. They're disruptors, and they should be out there in those premier moments to cause havoc and disruption. The dumb penalties, late hits, various personal fouls, etc., also could have burned Notre Dame. So those were a couple of head-scratchers with personnel decisions and just penalties that really could have blown up your universe. Overall, Notre Dame looked like they were out there playing the blue-gold spring game. No urgency to put on a big performance against a team they were wildly more talented than. And with 4 games again remaining, including the next 2 weeks, this coming week you got Navy at home, 7-1, coming off a loss to a good North Texas team in South Bend, and a hot 7-2 Pitt team November 15. The lackadaisical approach needs to be completely dismissed, and you've got to move on from that. It can't happen again. You're playing better teams the next couple of weeks. You do that in similar fashion to the way you did it at Chestnut Hill, you're going to go down. You're going to get beat. Notre Dame is simply too talented to play for most of the game the way they played Saturday afternoon against a now 1-8 Boston College team. The same applies to the coaching staff. You've got to have guys ready to play. And not to pile on, but it is beyond worth mentioning and talking about. Some of those miscues, again, really could have blown up Notre Dame's day. The kicking game was a complete dumpster fire on Saturday. Noah Burnett, the kid's battled his fair share of injury this season, and he very well could still be pretty banged up. Stuffed the PAT off the upright in the second quarter after a Fields touchdown, and that was only just the beginning of the woes they had in this area of special teams. At the end of the second frame, freshman Eric Schmidt, who the kid is incredibly talented, probably the future of the position, missed the 35-yard field goal, wasn't even close. As the half came to a close through 30 minutes, scored 12-7 Notre Dame. So you're kind of scratching your head there thinking, you have these miscues here. This could be a lot larger lead for Notre Dame without them, but they're self-inflicted wounds. To make matters even worse, Notre Dame's third kicker to appear in the game, Marcello Diamiti, missed his own PAT attempt following a Jeremiah Love touchdown. That one wasn't very close either. On the day, The Irish were collectively 1 for 4 on PATs with a missed field goal. Visibly upset with the performance after the game, and you can't blame them. It's now going to be interesting to see the direction Marcus Freeman travels with this area of the special teams unit. If Burnett is still hurt, you can't be trucking him out there. All right, I think we all know that. We all agree with it. And while Schmidt would probably be given first crack at the job, if that is the case with Burnett, it's not a foregone conclusion that he grabbed the opportunity. Said Freeman after the game, and he was right in part, if, quote, if you have 3 kickers, you don't have one, end quote. He's 100% correct. But given the ambitions of this Notre Dame team, you can't go into a potential big game, Navy, Pitt, whatever it might be, or playoff game with a massive unknown like this. We're going to see what happens, but like solidifying that offensive line, which I think is ultimately going to happen because individually they're a very good group, and you saw how good they could be in spots Saturday, the Irish are going to need the consistency in the special teams game. Otherwise, Marcus Freeman's going to have some different decisions he's going to have to make as it pertains to perhaps going for it more on fourth and even longer, or attempting 2-point conversions like we saw Saturday in Chestnut Hill. From a positive perspective, let's not forget, however, as I transition here, the Irish did win the game. That's the most important thing. And a big reason why, Jeremiah Love. On a day where the Irish ran as a team for less than $160, Love was the leader once again. He racked up 136 on the ground, 17 carries to go along with, again, 2 touchdowns, as I mentioned earlier. And while the offensive line, again, had those ups and downs, the inconsistencies, they stepped up big. This is what I mentioned moments ago when they looked good when it mattered most. Love gained 94 of his 136 yards on one run where he burst through the first point of attack for BC and raced home for his 11th rushing score of the season. On that play, you saw it live if you didn't go back and watch it, the Irish front 5 did a masterful job in plowing the road. Collectively, you could see it. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch, and just shows you how good, when they're in sync, the Notre Dame offensive line can be. And as we know, once Jeremiah Love gets into open space, it's over. Love's touchdown put the Irish up 25-10 with 11 minutes to go, and that was a score that would ultimately hold the rest of the way. His ability to dominate plays and take over games, as we saw 2 weeks ago against USC, well over 200 yards on the ground, and on that 94-yard scamper and score against BC, make Notre Dame obviously a more dangerous team. And when the Irish are firing across the board on all cylinders, having the weaponry they possess in the backfield is the stuff of nightmares for the opposition, regardless of who you're playing. I don't care if it's Ohio State, Indiana, or a 1-7 Boston College team. Now, Ohio State quarterback Julian Sayin is probably the leader, at least at the moment, for the Heisman Trophy. But from where I'm sitting, I think it's beyond fair and reasonable to have Jeremiah Love in the conversation as one of the players worthy of consideration. I think that's fair. It certainly was coming into the season. I think we can put him at least in the mix there with these other quarterbacks. The Mendoza kid from Indiana, Marcel Reed from Texas A&M, and obviously Sayin out of Ohio State. I think you're in the mix there if you're Jeremiah Love. He simply, folks, just is that good. And I'll wrap today with just a quick look at what else took place this past weekend, and the impact that it had on the now 10th-ranked Irish, with 3 top 10 teams going down. Number 10, Miami losing in overtime at SMU. Vandy, number 9, comes up short in a 34-31 comeback attempt in a loss at number 20, Texas, and NC State taking it to previously undefeated. And then number 8 ranked Georgia Tech. The Irish watched as 3 teams in front of them fell. 3 teams ranked ahead of them, I should say, lost. It was enough to vault ND back into the top 10, especially since they won their own game, right, against Boston College. With 4 games remaining, Navy, Pitt, Syracuse, Stanford, the Irish know what needs to be done. Win out. We'll learn even more about how Notre Dame is viewed nationally when the first college football playoff rankings are released Tuesday night. For now, it's fair to be excited about a 6-game winning streak, as lackluster as Saturday was, while thanking the 3 squads who lost over the weekend that were, at the time, ranked ahead of you. So it's going to be interesting. This is fun. Chaos usually takes place the last month of the season. Records go out the window. Boston College acquitted itself very nicely Saturday against the Irish. They showed up to play, while Notre Dame had to get itself going, especially after that really, really, really lazy-looking first half. So the Irish 6-2, back in the top 10. Very good chance going game by game to finish out the regular season, which ends November 29th at Stanford with a 10-2 record. And then you're probably in the playoff, but you got to take care of business. Not going to be easy at home this weekend against Navy. Certainly not going to be easy going back on the road against a red-hot Pitt team who plays a physical brand of football. And then you wrap Syracuse at home, senior day, and then you go on the road, Palo Alto, Stanford the 29th to wrap it up. So 5 games in the month of November, plenty of work left to do. 1 down, 4 to go. With that, I hope you have an outstanding rest of your day. I'll see you all tomorrow. And as always, go Irish.